All right, it's me, Dylan Sky, Delansky, like Banksy, like the artist Banksy, but Dylan Sky, Delansky, you know, go by both. So basically, what I want to do is a quick history lesson. So this is Toronto or Canada. A lot of people don't know the history here, right? I got my nice little scarf on today because there's a bit of snow outside, but it's starting to clear up. All right, so basically, what I want to get into was Canada is known as a multicultural place. So there's different histories. There's a history of the natives, the Native Americans. There's a history of the Asians. The Chinese Pacific Railway. And then there is the history of the African settlers, right? The Afro Canadians. The other one is Asian Canadians. Which is more known. And then, obviously the Native Americans, they're not called Native American Canadians, they're just called Native Americans. That's what most people refer to them as. Then there's the history of the Indo-Canadians, Indians, like South Asian. There's the African Canadians, Afro-Canadian, then the Europeans, right? So there's about 6 different ones. So Europe, Asia, South Asia, what's the other one? African and Native American. So basically what I wanted to say is the history, right? So what I was trying to say is, so in Canada, so let's start with the Asians, because the Asians were, not to say it's simpler, but it's covered in history, So when you sit down in secondary school for history or, grade 8, they'll teach you this, right? So that's more known, which is so the Asians, right? So if you look at a map of the world, or you look at the globe, China is on the other side of the Pacific Ocean to Canada. There, it's basically they're divided by the ocean. So Canada is over here, China is right here, and then the Pacific Ocean is right here. So that gap right there, where my face is, that is where the ocean is. So this is Canada, this is Asia, mainly China, So in Vancouver, British Columbia, right where the Pacific Rail system in Canada started, the Asians back in those times, right, they migrated to Canada to work on the Pacific Rail. So the name comes from the Pacific Ocean, right? And then the railway, because they're building a train track, a railway, which travels through Canada. It travels from Vancouver, BC, which is the west coast of Canada. And then it travels all the way through to the Maritimes, or what we refer to as the east coast of Canada, which is Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, PEI and Nova Scotia over there. Which in America, that's basically from Seattle, like Washington, right? All the way to Connecticut, Boston, like Massachusetts, Connecticut all the way over there. The East Coast, right? So like from New York to Seattle, Washington, that type of situation. So that's the Asians, right? So that's the Asians. They came, and that's why they have the Chinatown. The main Chinatown is in Vancouver, because that's where the original Chinese immigrants who would migrate to Canada would take that travel route, right? They would take boats from China. They would travel across the Pacific Ocean a little bit north, and then boom, they would be in Canada. Russia is also over there, right? Russia and China. So that was the history. That's how the Chinese Canadians, or Asian Canadians, that's how they got here. That's how they established their societies here. So Vancouver has a high Asian population. Vancouver, the west coast, like California, Seattle, Vancouver, because it's very close to China. You understand? So there's a high population there. So now the other thing is, not in addition. So yeah, when they came over here, they brought their culture, they brought everything, obviously, right? That's why you see the Chinatowns. And Chinatowns, the letters are always in, Cantonese, Mandarin, and dialects, Vietnamese, Korean, whatever other ethnicities and cultures, there are in the Asian community. So when you go there, all their words are in their language, right? Their dialects. And they also dress like that too, if you notice. So they're dressed that way. Their cigarettes are different, like they're colored that way, just like back in China. Their culture, their food, they speak that language, they dress that way. That's their culture, right? And their religion as well. So yeah, so that's the Asians, you know. All right, so the Native Americans in North America are obviously native to the land of America. That's why they're called the Native Americans. They were the native inhabitants, right? They were the occupants. They were already here. You get what I'm saying? So they were already here. This is a quick history lesson, you know. That's all this is to serve as. It's not nothing else, you know. So basically, it's not no political views. It's not no political opinions. You know, it's nothing. I'm just giving you what I read in the history books and what I know from documentaries and what I know from personal experience and travel and things like that. You know, so this is my understanding of it. It doesn't even mean that it's true. It could be my understanding. It doesn't mean that I'm correct. You know, you can verify for yourself. You can confirm these facts or disagree with them. I don't care. I don't know. I don't give a hoot. You know, it's whatever. But basically, you know, I'm just fascinated by it, so I'm trying to reflect on it. You know. So basically, the Native Americans, when they came from, when they were here, right, this was their land, native land. So they had tribes, you know, they had settlements, they had what I would call a village, but it's, you know, they have a different word for it. Like, so let's say reserves. Like nowadays they're called reserves, right? I think back in the day they were territories, you know. So basically, when they were here, they were living off of the land, you know, they had their own settlements, stuff like that, right? Just like the Chinese, you know, but they had their own culture, dress, religion. So if you notice, like the feather headband, the chiefs, you know, the elders, they have their cultural practices, they have things of that nature, right? So also what I would like to do is, like, I would like to show you, you know, I can show you, like, oh, this. So for example, I was speaking about the Asians earlier, the Chinese. So what I want to do is go there and show you, you know, like, hey, this is where the railway started. And then, you know, maybe even show you like a travel clip of traveling from one coast to the other coast, you know, and then show you, like, this is where it ends, this is what it looks like currently, and this is how it looked like back in the day. Maybe get some old stock photos or something, show you how when it was being built, you know. Just like for the natives, I would like to show people, like, this was the original first indigenous tribe to the land of you know, over here. So even the pronunciation, it was different, right? So like, let's say Canada, for example, in the native culture it was called Kanata. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. I'm probably saying it with a Canadian accent. It was Kanata, you know. So those are the things, you know. There's like historic stuff. You could Google it, you know. So basically, you know, I would like to show these cultures and these experiences, and, you know, how these different ethnicities and cultures existed, and, you know, all that stuff. I would love to do a documentary, which is what I'm planning to do with this, you know. So I'm giving a bit of history, and then I would like to follow up. You know, I'm going to go to the museums, I'm going to go to these heritage sites, historic sites, and show people, you know, this was what it was back then, this is what it is now, you know, and try to speak to people from those communities, you know. Maybe give like a insight into it, like find a person, you know, who has the history, maybe show some cool stuff, you know, that has to do with it. Like maybe show you like the first tool that was used, you know, the hammer that was used on the railway, you know. Show you like a headband from like one of the native tribes, you know, things like that. So yeah, so the natives they had their own food, you know, their way of their lifestyle, their living, you know, like cultivating the land, crops, you know, like trading crops for things that they needed, you know, things of that nature. Like maybe they have their own medicine, you know, they have their own way of doing things, right? They have their own schools, they have their own culture, things like that, right? So those type of things, right? Settlements, different places, you know. So somebody who's native could tell you better. Somebody who's Chinese and actually has family members that came from that, they could tell you better, right? You get what I'm saying? So that's what I would like to do here. All right, so the next culture was the Africans, right? There's a deep-rooted history for all of these things, right? So like I said, the Chinese, the Asians, the natives, the Africans, right? So let's get into the Africans. The Africans, they had So basically, there was obviously migrants who came to, work and find a better life, but there was slavery and stuff, and I don't know too much about the history of that. I know like American, because they teach you in history books, right? They're like, oh, slavery happened here. It was in the South. What they tell you, so this I think is a misconception. They tell you that slavery existed in the South, but there was something also called the Arabic. I don't want to discredit Africans and then just like make it about slavery, because that's definitely not what it's about. I don't want to be like, oh, the Africans are here because of slavery. That's definitely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that's what we're taught in history books, right? They're like, oh, look, there was slavery, but here's the thing: there was African settlements, African Canadian and Afro American settlements, right? So in Canada, Nova Scotia, I believe it's Dartmouth, right? Dartmouth or Dartmouth, or yeah, something like that. So that was the biggest African American or Afro Canadian settlement in Canada, right? That's where the original Afro Canadian community existed. So if you go there, right, you can read historic. They have these little historic plaques. That's like, this is where the original, pioneer home of the African Canadian settlement was. This is the town hall where the town hall meetings used to take place. This is so on and so forth. You get what I'm saying? Like, this is where town hall meetings were held. This used to be the general store, because it's a pioneer village, if you understand what I'm saying. So the pioneers, right? So that I'll get into next, because it's kind of tied in, similar. So in these settlements, they had villages and towns that were established, right? And in those times, they would have to, they lived a certain lifestyle. Like, they would have to chop wood for fire, because most places, it's not like nowadays where you just flick a smart thermostat or control it with your phone, right? It wasn't that. Back then, you would have to have a gas fireplace or whatever. You would have to have, a wood fireplace. And what you would have to do is you would have to chop wood, and use that wood. So they lived like the pioneers, so the Afro Canadians were pioneers, but they don't say that, they don't tell you that. They're like, oh, they don't even get mentioned. From what I recall in history, I've never read about an African American or Afro Canadian settlement in Canada. I do not know why. I don't know if I missed it. Maybe I was sick that day, and that one day they spoke about it for like 30 minutes. Maybe that could have happened, but I doubt it. So, because we're always learning about the blue coats, the red coats, the revolution, the world war, this, that, and the third, right? Christopher Columbus. You're never taught about these things, Or maybe I just missed it. Whoop-de-doo. I don't know, Maybe I slept in and missed a quick 20-minute discussion of Afro Canadians. I don't know. I don't know. So basically what I'm trying to say is that, so if I were to go there, for example, if I were to go to Nova Scotia, right, which is like the Atlanta or like the south of Canada, right? So you go there and you can walk around the villages where settlements existed, and then you can see their way of living, their culture, their lifestyle, the elders, stuff like that, right? Just like any other culture, just like any other ethnicity or race or culture, and all that. You can see like the churches, you can see, the department store, because in small towns like that back in the day, back in those times, they had like a department store, they had like a doctor's office, they had like the sheriff's, it was just like the old westerns, stuff like that. So then the next one is there's the pioneers and the European settlers, So when they came over here, like I said, there was the natives and there was the Afro Canadians, the Native Americans and then the Afro Canadians, So they were already here. And even maybe the Chinese settlers, maybe the Asian Canadians. I'm not too sure. I got to look this up, right? Because it's still new to me. I'm still learning as well, right? So basically, yeah, so when the pioneers came here, the European settlers, they basically came over here. I'm pretty sure that this land was already occupied. However, they brought things with them, like, I don't know if these things existed, because clearly there was like iron skillet pans, There was clearly muskets and like guns and stuff, right? Liquor, I don't know, these things. I'm pretty sure that the Asian community, the Native community, and the African community already had that, but I don't know, I wasn't there in those times, I currently live in, this is 2024, 2024. This was a long time ago. This was hundreds of years ago, right? So they used to live in log cabins, you know, or tents. So that's another interesting thing, right? The different shelters that they lived in. So like the Chinese, for example, they used to live in, or the Asians when they came to Vancouver, the houses, if you look back in the day, they would build houses along the railway, these little like wooden homes, you know, shelters, and they would work out of there and build the railway as they go. So like once it becomes a distance and it goes to another city, they would build a settlement there. The workers would stay there and build the rest of the railway. Boom, you know, and then they would just go from city to city all the way to the other side, you know, and these little settlements would pop up alongside the railway, right? So for example, the railway would be like boom, then you'd have these little houses, you know, a row of houses or whatever. They'd build a little settlement, and then as they built, so as they progressed, boom, boom, they would lay the railing down, you know, railway, and they would just extend it, boom, 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 you know, and then as they went, they would just build new settlements the further it got, you know, from the last one. So the natives, for example, this is very interesting. They would live in, it's not called a tent. It's similar to a tent, you know. It's I forget the actual term for it. Can't recall right now, but it's an opening or teepee. It's not a tent, it's a teepee. So a tent is like closed, you know. It's like boom, the top is closed. A teepee, the top has an opening for the smoke, you know, and for air and stuff. Because you would smoke meats in there, you know, you would cook in there. You'd release the smoke, you know, so that way you don't cause fires, stuff like that, right? So that's a shelter, a form of shelter. Like the African Canadians, for example, like I said, they lived in like log cabins, like the pioneers, right? Things like that. So it's different types of housing, different types of shelter, right? So now, back to what I was saying, the European settlers, when they came over here, what they were referred to as the pioneers, the pioneer villages. So like the Maritimes, the prairies. I mean the prairies, right? The prairies was like would be the prairies were like untouched land, you know, like just fields, you know, fields, and then the settlers would come and they would build little towns and villages in there, you know. And those are the prairies and the pioneer settlements, right? So the pioneers, what they would used to do is trap. They trapped, you know, so they would use animal fur, animal hide, animal skin. So for example, they would use raccoons for hats, you know, because it would keep them warm. So like a raccoon hat, which is famous in if you watch like Simpsons and the Sacagawea episode where you know they got the raccoon hat. The hat is like the raccoon fur, then there's like the tail hanging off, you know, and they would ride their horses, right? So now when they came to Canada, what I'm guessing is the natives had horses. So I'm guessing that they exchanged something, they bartered or traded, and you know, they gave something to them, and they probably bought some horses, you know, and livestock and stuff when they came over here, right? Like pigs, cows, chickens, whatever, right? So what I'm thinking is that they did that. But here's the thing. So when they trapped, they would do that, right? But then they made moccasins. Like, so the natives, I'm pretty sure they learned it from the natives. That also brings you back to the native culture, right? So they had like moccasins. I forget what it's called. It's like, this is very incorrect, but it kind of sounds like this is like a mock tuck, right? It's similar to that. I can't remember the exact word right now, but it's like, you know, there's these things where that I completely probably butchered it because I'm just trying to say something that sounds similar to it so I can look it up later, you know. It's a reference for myself as well. But these things were so like, you know, like snowshoes, moccasins as well, you know, like your shoes would be made of deer fur, deer hide, you know, like the skin of a deer, or moose, you know, moose, caribou, deer, things like that. And then basically they would make these shoes to walk on snow, also like snowshoes, you get it? So that was between the pioneers and the natives and stuff, you know, and probably the African Canadian settlers, African American, Canadian, whatever you want to refer to it as. The Chinese, I'm not too sure if they had snowshoes, if they had moccasins and stuff. I'm not too sure, you know. I don't know. So yeah, I know that the pioneers did. I know that the natives did, you know. So, and I'm pretty sure that the African Canadians did because they're basically pioneers as well. You get what I'm saying? And natives, right? So basically, yeah, they would have these things that walk on thing. Plus, the other thing was they were trying to stay silent because they would hunt, right? So during hunting time, you kind of want to be quiet. You kind of want to make less noise and not, crush the snow and crunch the snow, because snow, when you step on it, crunches. So things like that. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of history. They used to live in log cabins. They would trap. They would make clothing out of animal fur and animal skin. Things like that. That would also be food, obviously. Yeah, man. So they also had settlements, like they would have log cabins. They would have like a department store, general store, pharmacy, doctor, sheriff. Da 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 da. There's like little settlements, villages, and towns and stuff, right? Cities and stuff came afterwards. I'm not sure what the first city in Canada was, which is unfortunate. I don't even know what the first city in America was. I'm guessing it was New York. I could be completely wrong about that. I should probably look into my history. I don't even know. I just came up with this today, so I'm definitely gonna do some reading. It just never served a purpose to me to really look into like what was the first city in America, what was the first city. Cause I don't know. I didn't really care about it too much. Not to be ignorant or stupid about it, but like I said, I wasn't born in Canada, right? So it doesn't really, I don't know. But now that I'm here, I would definitely like to look into it. Now that I'm in North America, I'd like to find out more about North America. Yeah, I find it interesting though. Like for me, the example, like when I was in elementary school, they brought a native person, an indigenous person, who built a teepee in the schoolyard. He spent the night, because I could see it from my apartment balcony. He spent the night, I could see the smoke and stuff. Then he taught us about the things, and like how they would pass time. They would weave together stuff, stuff like that. He would show me like the hide and stuff. Like they'd show us how to put up the teepee. We would help the guy assemble the teepee, stuff like that. As far as the pioneers, I went on a Kearney trip when I was in like grade 6 or something, and they showed us like the cabins. They showed us, where they used to keep the firewood. They showed us like the trapping equipment, like the little, stuff. Animal furs, the raccoon hats, stuff like that, So stuff like that, right? Yeah, man. Then the Indians, from what I understand, it was kind of like the Chinese. Like they would take boats over here because India is next to China, right? Then the Indians, the South Asians, they used to travel by boat, right? And then they would come over here. For example, I believe it was Buckham Singh, Buckham Singh. If you Google that, you'll see what I'm talking about. Buckham Singh, that's like a reference. So they would come travel by boat, and then they would come. I think it was the Sikh community, if I'm not mistaken, the Sikhs. Because there are different parts of India, like Punjabi, Gujarati, Sikh, Hindustan, this, that, and the third, Just like the Chinese, there's different parts, right? Cantonese, Mandarin, there's Vietnamese, Korean, like I mentioned, Asian, different stuff. So when the Indians came, right, they also settled. And from what I understand, they were also close to Vancouver, British Columbia, or British Columbia, not Vancouver, but British Columbia itself. So from what I understand, I do not know this for sure. I'm not 100%, but I think their community also started over there because it was closer to the Pacific Ocean for travel. So that was the first land that the boat could land on. You get what I'm saying? So like once the boat set sail from India or China or whatever, then it would go across the Pacific, and it would head towards the west coast of Canada or the west coast of America, right? So then they would touch down. That was the first piece of land that they could see from, the ocean. So, and ocean travel is obviously long travel, so they want to land as fast as they can, right? They want to get to land as fast as possible. So I think that's where that started, right? Yeah, man. So there's a lot of interesting history and different cultures. There's obviously different ethnicities, different communities, different cultures, different religions. So it's always good to learn, right? So when you say Asian, there's things like Filipino, Malaysian, Indonesian, Thai, Vietnamese, Korean, and I'm leaving a lot of stuff out. Philippines, China, Japan, Korea, if I didn't already say that, all that stuff. When you think about Native Americans, there's over like 100 tribes. There's like Cree, Ojibwe, Métis, First Nations, this, that, and the third. If you look at South Asians, as I mentioned, there's like 4 different Indians alone, just in this country of India. There's different states and provinces and stuff, right? There's Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, this, that, and the third, right? And then even Europe, Russia, France, Italy, Ukraine, Yugoslavia, you know, Soviet, all that stuff, right? Different stuff, you know, different parts of Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, stuff like that. And then even the Latin American, Southern American, so you got like Mexico, Chile, or Venezuela, Guyana, this, that, and the third, right? Africa, same thing. There's Ghana, you know, Egypt, Somalia, Morocco, you know, all these things. So there's different places all over the place, you know. So there's different things going on everywhere. You know, it's on you to learn these things, right? If you're, like I said, even me, I'm just learning about these things because now I'm learning, you know, that I'm learning about these different communities that exist, you know. So yeah, very interesting. What I want to do is, you know, so me personally, what I would like to do is that I would like to basically go to these places, interact with these communities, you know, try the food, try the spiritual experiences, try the cultural experiences, for example, you know, like, and the clothing as well, right? I would like to try the clothing. I would like to see what they saw, you know. I would like to go there and look at what they saw before these cities and stuff were here, you know, like what were they looking at? They were just looking at a piece of land, you know, in a foreign country and being like, we're gonna start a settlement here, we're gonna start a community here. And then hundreds of years later, here we are, you know. So I'd like to go to the museums and look at those parts as well, those pieces, things like that, you know. So yeah, man, it's gonna be very interesting. And I'd even like to show like these different pockets and communities, you know, where these demographics exist, you know, geographical and demographical, demographics, geographic, you know, cultural, religions, languages, cultures, foods, clothes, you know, views and opinions, just that political stuff, you know, just to show people that there's so much stuff going on, just like religions, right? There's Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Islam, Buddhism, you know, Hindus, Jewish, you know, and there's different variations of each cultures, right? So there's so much stuff going on, you know, and basically, you just gotta learn, you know. It'd be nice to know about these things, right? Because these people exist around you. These are your friends and family, so why not, you know, learn everything you can. You get it. The more you know, the better, right? So that way you're not ignorant. You're not doing a cultural faux pas. You know, you're not stepping on toes. You're not being disrespectful without knowing it. You know, things of that nature. You just gotta be smart. You know. So yeah, man. Cheers, man. I look forward to doing this. I just thought about it right now. I'm definitely gonna do a documentary or something. A documentary like a travel thing. You know, I would love to. As you can see right now, I look like a nice little college student. You know. So yeah, I will be going around doing this stuff. And yeah, man, everything's good. I don't know. Perfect. So I was planning on making like a media channel with like travel, tourism, you know, foods, restaurants, different cultures, different experiences, traveling, you know, going to different countries, experiencing stuff. And also, you know, culture, interviews, you know, documentaries, docu-series. So like even if I could work with another media company that's already established, you know, or, you know, I will start my own, because my opinions and views might be different from you. But if they're willing to have me, you know, and my ideas, you know, my creative content, I will definitely be open to that, you know. I'm a very humble person. I'm always learning. My ears are always open, you know. I always learn. I listen a lot more than I speak, you understand? So like I like to sit there, observe. I like to listen, you know. I like to learn things from people, you know. And I'm very humble, you know, just because I'm older or, you know, just because whatever the situation, I don't be like, listen, I run things here. I don't. I definitely don't, you know. The thing here is I'm looking to learn, you know. I'm looking to learn something here. I want to experience the culture. I want to learn. I don't want to assert dominance here, you know, because it's not my place to assert dominance. I don't come here and be like, I run this restaurant. Even if I do, right, I could be the owner. Even then, I could learn from my chefs. I could learn from my staff. I could learn from my clients, my customers who come in here, because they might be like, hey, da 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 da. You get it? So always be humble. Always be willing to learn things. You know that. Just shut your mouth and listen and look. You know, and you're gonna learn a lot. You get what I'm saying? I'm not saying shut your mouth in a disrespectful way. What I'm saying is, like, when I keep my mouth closed, I don't speak. Guess what? My ears are open. I got 2 ears, right? Look, 1, 2. I got 2 ears on both sides of my head. I got 2 eyes to look at them. Guess what? I got 1 mouth. My 1 mouth is what? It just talks. But guess what? My 2 eyes, they observe, they see, they look out at the world and they observe, and they're like, hey, what's that? What's that? What's that? Then the answers, I gotta listen for them. So the person's like, hey, this here is a vehicle. This here is the sky. This here is the grass. This here is a cow. This here is a building. This here is a bird. This here is a tire. This here is a tree. You know, and I gotta listen and be like, okay, what is a tree? Oh, it's a plant. You plant seeds in the ground, in the soil, then through the grass, the tree will sprout up. I'm like, oh wow, that's what I'm looking at. You get it? So what am I looking at? And then to get the answer, I gotta listen, you know? So that's what I hope to do here. So I hope people understand, you know? I'm not gonna pretend like I know it all. I definitely don't. I'm gonna ask people, I'm gonna read, you know? I'm gonna do things like that. I don't know. I'm just here to learn, you know? I'm not here to tell people about things. I'm just gonna relay the information. If I am telling you something, I am saying something, it's me relaying the information and hoping that it helps you get the answer. Because we might both be looking at the same thing, right? We're both looking at a tree. I'm like, yo, what is this thing I'm looking at, bro? And you're like, yo, you tell me, I don't know. And then we both look at each other, we're like, So somebody comes walking past and we're like, yo, what is this thing we're staring at? And the person's like, well, you know, the history here is that this tree was planted by me and my family back 50 years ago when I was a kid. I threw seeds here, the tree sprouted up, and now it's a big, strong tree. And you're both looking at it, and thank you for asking me. You know, you give the person the opportunity to tell the story, right? That's the whole thing. Storytelling was a big way back in the day, you know, like if you notice the Egyptians, they used to write on walls. If you looked at cavemen, they used to write on the walls, you know, and during during like when they had their little bonfires and stuff, they would share stories. That was a big thing, you know. You get what I'm saying? So storytelling, passing information through generation to generation, folklore, myths, stories. Storytelling was a big part of human culture, you know, not just this ethnicity, that ethnicity, or that demographic. But storytelling in itself was like an art, you know? And the elders used to do that, and it was passed down generation to generation. That's why you see TV. TV is storytelling, right? Media is storytelling. You get it? Everything is storytelling. Dramatic arts, theater, you know? Music. Everything is storytelling. Photography, a picture says 1,000 words. You get it? So yeah, man. You get to meet my scholar side, you know? So if I went to college first for general arts, then I took indigenous studies, then I took ethnic studies. I went to college in Canada, I went to college in America as well. I've been to school in like 4 different countries, you know, in different places. You get what I'm saying? And I've been to university as well. I've been to the University of Waterloo, I've been to the Rutgers University in New Jersey, you know, NYU, New York University. I applied for Stanford, I applied for, what's the other one? I applied for Yale and Harvard as well. And I took Harvard courses. I've taken Harvard courses, Harvard courses, taking Yale courses, you know, York University in Toronto, you know, McGill, McMaster, all that stuff, you know, Western University. I've been through there, all there. So like you see, you know, I'm dressed like a scholar today. I felt scholarly, you know, tongue twister right there, scholarly. But yeah, I felt a bit, you know, educated today. So I felt like displaying my educated, civilized side, you know, for all the people that think I'm just a crazy animal because I got tattoos and, you know, and you know, whatever else. But yeah, man, I'm very educated, man. I'm very smart. Stop this, huh? Stop this. Stop it. Stop this. Listen. Stop this. Stop this. Would you stop? Stop this, okay? Stop. Learn something. Learn something with your family. Wink, wink. Oh, yeah, I had a bit of coffee today. I had coffee like your ear, you know, due to health reasons. I just had myself a coffee. Maybe that's why I feel intelligent today. You know, like a student. You know, students are always drinking coffee. They're, you know, taking their coffee and doing long hours, trying to become whoever they want to be. Feel very scholarly because I got my nice sweater on. You know, I got my scarf. I got my glasses. My little comb over hair style. My little hairdo. Had a nice coffee. I feel like I'm back in university again. You know, living on campus. Cheers. You know. Cheers with my imaginary coffee cup to you guys. I hope you become the leaders of the future. I hope you become the future doctors, future judges, future politicians, future business owners. May all your dreams come true. More health, more wealth, more life. Cheers, you know, with my imaginary coffee cup. If I had my coffee cup, I'd cheers you, but I already drank it, you know. I'll use this water bottle. Cheers. Feel me? You feel me? Peace, man.